Welcome to Franklin Almanac. I'm Polikseni Manxhari. Welcome to our 5th edition of Almanac, a compendium of life in Franklin. As always, we'll bring you important stories. What's happened, what's happening, what matters. On this edition of Almanac, we take a look at some of the important local concerns and issues affecting Franklin today, and how people in the community are working to make Franklin a better place for all. On March 26th, Franklin residents came together at the First Universalist Society for an informational meeting to discuss an important issue affecting the community, the proposed Spectra Access Northeast Pipeline. Concerned citizens are mobilizing to educate and inform the community about the Spectra pipeline. Many living in Franklin and surrounding towns are still unaware of this project and its potential safety, health, and environmental impact. This public presentation, run by the 350 Massachusetts Greater Franklin Node, sparked a lively conversation among residents. Let's have a look at what they and Node leaders, Carolyn and Rand Barthel, had to say.
The basic argument that's being made for this project is we need the gas, and the claim is made that, that we have a shortage of gas supply for making electricity in the state, and that high prices for both electricity and gas are caused by this shortage, and that if we build new pipelines into the region, it will prevent the price spikes that sometimes happen in the wintertime and reduce prices, and it is claimed that those price reductions will more than pay for the cost of the pipeline. The institutional players that want to build this thing, you have the major utilities, Eversource and National Grid, which have formed a consortium with the Spectra Energy Pipeline to build the Access Northeast project. And so when we hear the utilities arguing that we need this, you need to understand that they are arguing that position as investors in this project.
Q1 loop is a 30-inch steel pipeline buried at least 3 feet in the ground. The operating pressure is 750 pounds per square inch. And it can transport a lot of natural gas per day. The towns that are affected by the Q1 loop, which is in this area, are Medway, Bellingham, Franklin, Millis, Norfolk, Walpole, Sharon, Canton, and Stoughton.
So, what is the real point of building all these pipelines and the view in the face of these problems? Well, all of that slack capacity that I showed you on that graph is not in fact going to go unused. It will not stand idle. It will be used, and we contend that it will be used to export gas overseas, or possibly in a move to try to expand the use of natural gas here.
So natural gas is a fossil fuel, despite what those ads are talking about on TV. It is a fossil fuel, and it forms carbon dioxide and water when it burns, and so and when it doesn't burn, and when it's leaked, or at a compressor station when it's blown off, it's 86 times worse as a greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide over 20 years.
Well, the overall situation right now is that the ball is currently in Spectra's court. We are waiting for them to come forward with some other approach, and we think that an attempt to legalize the pipeline tax would face strong opposition in the Massachusetts legislature. The state Senate voted unanimously to outlaw the pipeline tax in its version of the omnibus energy bill last summer, and more than 100 of the state representatives in the lower house signed a letter opposing it. So we think that we are in a fairly good position to stop that, but only if there is continued and strengthening public resistance to this.
What is something that they said that really caught your attention that you weren't aware of for the pipeline?
I guess that it's already following one, because because I studied in England, I looked at sort of the landscape there, but I haven't looked at natural gases and regular pipelines. I've heard a lot about oil, but not so much about the natural gases. On a personal level, I'm being diagnosed with a disorder called Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, but it's kind of a hodgepodge group of disorders where we're realizing that the environment is really impacting our genes. So kind of, I think a lot to do with sort of these chemicals out and about now with fracking and all of that is really impacting the younger generation and the way that our genes come out. And so my whole body, connective tissue-wise, does not work the way that it should. And it's looking like that whole set of diseases is kind of on the rise because of all this chemical stuff that we haven't tested through the decades.
I think it was interesting what they said, that natural gas is actually just as bad as coal in terms of being a fossil fuel. I know that, they will say that, oh, natural gas burns more cleanly than coal, but with all of the leaks, that can make it just as bad as coal. So I thought that was interesting.
For me, I felt like the capacity graph was really compelling. So thinking about, how we don't really need extra gas except for, 5 to 10 days a year. And then in the summer, we could use less. Like, we don't need to have that kind of capacity. And then to make the argument that we need to build our capacity and create this huge amount of infrastructure for it doesn't seem needed at all, especially if we as a community and a state are decreasing our energy use. That really was compelling for me.
So 350 Massachusetts is a statewide network of climate activists that have we have chapters, which we call nodes, in many towns all over the state, from the Berkshires to the Cape, and we work for climate solutions at the state level. We advocate for obviously to stop bad things, and like we were working on here, and also to promote good things, promote more projects that will move the state in the direction of a clean, renewable energy future.
What inspired the commitment to this cause for you both?
We're parents, and we have twins who are 26 years old. They will live to see the 2070s in all likelihood, and by then, if the climate models are correct that the scientists have, conditions on this planet could be extremely serious. And so we want to head that off before it happens.
This is not something that's airy-fairy, long time coming. This is happening right now. It's a matter of degree. So we're in the middle of climate change, and it's up to us about how we can keep it from getting worse.
So what was the message that you were hoping to spread to the people who attended today?
We do not have to just passively go along with what the energy industry would like to do as far as our energy future is concerned. We need to take it into our own hands and change the direction that we're in.
We need to keep pushing. Our job is to. I really can't conceive of an unlivable planet.
The 350 Massachusetts Greater Franklin Node meets regularly on the first and third Sundays of the month at the First Universalist Society at 262 Chestnut Street in Franklin from 7 to 9 p.m. All are welcome. The Madalene Village development is keeping Franklin residents fired up and on the edge of their seats. The 32-unit plan to be located on Cottage Street will cause the elimination of trees between Fletcher Field and neighboring homes. This development plan calls for the relocation of the stream currently running through the middle of the future property. This and several other issues are leaving neighbors and other Franklin residents uneasy. To get a better understanding of how this development will affect neighboring homes, I sat down with residents Angela and Paul Waislaw, who will be affected firsthand.
Off the bat, I just want to thank you both for taking a time out of your busy schedule to join us for this, hot topic in the community. So Madalene Village. This development has caused a lot of uproar in the Franklin community, so can you give me a brief overview as to what makes this so controversial?
Well, I think that the first thing is there's not a lot of land involved. We're talking less than 4 acres. This is a map of the development that we're looking at. Right now, this whole section here is wooded. There's a stream that runs through here. As you can see, they're proposing replacing that. There's Fletcher Field is over here.
Okay.
They're proposing replacing all this with this extremely dense development. There's 32 units planted
Okay.
on less than 4 acres. That's a lot of units.
Right, right.
To add in back of existing housing. They're also talking about the stream, obviously, which runs more or less like this, needs to move
Right.
because they're running a road, a
It's
through
'cause
road
this development's supposed to be going right in the middle of the
of
stream.
where the stream
Okay.
is, right? They've shunted the stream to the side, right in the property line, and this sort of unnatural configuration we're looking at here. The whole area has been susceptible to flooding over time. So all the residents, the abutters here, many of them are quite elderly. They lived here their entire lives. So these are like 80-year-long residents of
Yeah.
Franklin.
Right.
They were plagued by flooding in the past. The Army Corps of Engineers, years ago, decades ago, addressed some of the issues. That stream right now is serving as a drainage area
Okay.
for the entire area.
Got it.
If the stream's rerouted, replaced, and currently the absorbent ground that flows into that stream is replaced with hardtop,
Right.
the residents are in real fear that there's going to be extensive flooding down into their houses
Okay.
and their yards, which are lower
Okay.
and
I see.
downhill here, and also Fletcher's Field again, may become susceptible to flooding at that point.
Okay.
And another issue is really the environmental concerns that are happening with this, because currently it's completely unpaved, completely pervious to rainwater, and it's got a canopy of trees all throughout.
Yes.
And what they're planning to do with these structures and with this roadway, the current percentage is, I believe, 51.13% impervious.
Okay.
So impervious to rainwater. They've designed a Cultec system to try to do some infiltration, but basically, more than half of this parcel is going to be blacktop or dwelling units. Where are these kids even going to play?
Right. Right.
So
That's
not
important.
only is it designed without the residents who abut the property in mind, but we really feel it's a poor design for the residents who might end up living there.
Okay.
There's just not enough space for what they're proposing to
right.
do.
Okay, great. And I had recently read the letter that you wrote to the ZBA, and you mentioned a few things like snow storage, fire safety, flooding, and as well as the stream. So why are those the important topics when we're talking about the development?
Okay. Well, with a 40B development, the issues that really are ones that have precedent with the ZBA are those that relate to health, safety of the citizens. And, basically the fire chief's concern is the design with these 4-unit buildings.
Okay.
So there's one here, one here, one here.
Yes.
He was worried about the response time and access to the rear of those parcels.
Okay. Because I'm sure they have their own codes as well for
Yeah,
easy access
I mean,
to the buildings.
They need to meet fire code regulations.
Right.
His concern is just sheer access,
Okay.
which isn't directly covered by, I think, by the fire code regulations.
Okay.
So consistently, the fire chief in Franklin's been saying that he feels that he has concerns about,
Okay.
in case of a fire, being able to get equipment, around the buildings.
Right.
Another issue, obviously, is the Conservation Commission. So this is 40B housing, so that's a state regulation. It's anti-snob zoning regulations. So it's to promote affordable housing. So
Right.
so a bunch of your local bylaws can be bypassed in favor of the development.
Okay.
Now, in terms of conservation and the environment, there's actually 2 sets of regulations. There's the town bylaws, and then there's the state regulations for conservation. Certainly, our conservation commissioner has been on record as feeling that the local bylaws should not be waived for the development. They were, in fact, waived by the Zoning Board of Appeals.
Right.
So,
And he was also just concerned that the developer didn't bring his department into the design process. Because in a good design, that's typically what's done. The developer will look at the site and develop according to the site. But instead, it seemed like the developer looked at the site, ignored the site, and developed it in a way to try to maximize units.
Interesting. Okay.
Now, the developer's not legally required to involve the Conservation Commission at the same time they involve the Zoning Board of Appeals. They can go separately to them, and they can defer going to the Conservation Commission until the Zoning Board of Appeals has ruled one way or the other on the project. So they're not doing anything illegal. But in friendly 40B projects, you involve all the parties together.
Yes.
This one's sort of been run into the teeth of the town residents. So.
Interesting. So let's talk about Fletcher Field. How does the development affect Fletcher Field?
Where the development falls into the existing.
That's the outline, yeah. Interesting. And what happens with the stream? What's their plan?
Okay, so right now the stream is currently running through here, and it's about 100 feet from Fletcher Field. And in the redesign, they're going to jog it around the perimeter here. And basically, that's going to create jurisdictional wetland area for Fletcher Field. Right now, it's about 100 feet from the stream, so if Fletcher Field wants to do any maintenance or any changes to their field, they don't have to worry about environmental law in that. This tree cover right now provides a lot of protection and sound muffling for the residents who abut the field. With the new plan, these new developments are going to be, it looks like maybe 30 feet from the ball field, 37 feet from the ball field. And this is going to be replaced by low cover. Right now the trees are about 40 feet tall throughout, so it's significant dense undergrowth coverage. And just the other thing with the traffic pattern, you're going to have cars coming in from Cottage Field and out through to Peck Street, creating a bit of a throughway. Right now, especially in the spring months, Fletcher Field, this ball field is very busy. We have Pisani Field over here, and that roadway is going to come out onto Peck Street, which is already very busy, already challenged for parking. And, you know, in that stretch of time that it's used, you know, if we have residents of this new development who have an event, that's going to
adds
create,
more,
you know, a parking nightmare. Somebody's birthday party, you know.
Cause a lot of problems.
What makes me a bit nervous, too, is that, you know, after a game on Pisani Field, the kids will spill across the street in a large herd. You know, right now it's bad enough with the corner up there and the other corner down there, but now there's going to be a road running right smack into the middle of them as they come out.
Well, speaking of other residents, it's obvious that you two are against this development. Have you heard any feedback from other residents regarding how they feel? What side are they on?
Okay. Well, we have about 35 people on our email distribution list. Our neighbors set up a Facebook page, so they're in opposition to it. We also have another 35 people on our mailing list. We've had some neighborhood meetings here at Franklin TV. Residents have been in attendance. These meetings started April 21st of last year. We've had really strong resident attendance.
Wow.
It's been about a year. We've had probably about 7 meetings. We've always been represented at those meetings. Probably the you know, from the earliest, we had around 40, but we had dedicated residents coming out in the winter, some of them in their 80s. They're just really opposed to this and what's going to happen to their neighborhood.
So that's 7 evening zoning board meetings that residents have faithfully turned out for. At every such zoning board meeting, residents have gotten up to, again, voice their disapproval and genuine fear over this project. In all this time, in 1 year, I don't believe I've heard one positive resident comment on this project.
Interesting.
And as Angela said, you know, there's been 35, 40 people who are abutters or residents, you know, in the area who have come out against it.
And I have to know, what is the personal connection to this? Why are you so passionate about it?
Well, for one thing, we live next to it.
Right, that
So-
makes a big deal. Yeah.
Our house
That's
is
our house.
right there.
Oh wow, it's right there.
Right.
Okay.
This is our driveway
Oh wow.
running next to the property line.
Interesting.
So the original version of this plan had that road running right next to my driveway, like right next to it,
Oh wow.
which meant that I'm going to be picked off coming out of my house and getting in my car some morning.
Interesting.
So that was, I think, the original impetus for
Yep.
why we were against the project.
When they do a project like this, they run a program and they do a circle. And they run overlapping circles, and then they run an abutters list. So anyone within that, I think it's a 200-yard radius of the circle, is considered an abutter.
If you could say anything to the owners and the developers of this property, what would you say to them if you had the opportunity?
The house we live in now, it's an old family house. Angela's family was from Franklin. That was her grandmother's house. Not the developers, but the owners in question, they grew up in that house. I would ask them, why are you doing this to your own old neighborhood?
What would you say?
I'd say just reconsider. If you want to develop the land, try to do something that actually fits in the space. Don't do something that's going to adversely affect so many people and really destroy the neighborhood. Try for something that fits, something modest, something that takes into
Something that
consideration.
works.
Yes.
Okay.
Works both for the abutters, but also the people who are going to live there. I just feel like they've designed something that wouldn't be a great place to live. And Cottage Street and Peck Street and the surrounding area is a wonderful place to live.
Well, I just want to thank you both for, again, taking time out of your busy schedule. And hopefully your voices will be heard, as well as the voices of other Franklin residents. So thank you again.
Residents gathered here at Franklin TV to address their concerns about the upcoming Madalene Village development. Here's what they had to say.
I'm a direct abutter to the Madalene Village property. Part of it, the property Madalene Village that they want to build on is 21 Peck Street. I live at 13 Peck Street. I've lived there for 25 years. My father, Robert Cochran, has
79 years. Right across the third Mecca school over there where they play ball. Where they going to park the cars? Where they going to put the snow out of that project? It's a straight run. Where they going to put all the snow in the wintertime? You can't go in the houses on both sides.
It's wetlands. It shouldn't be built upon, and it's just going to destroy our neighborhood.
Well, I've been here almost 60 years. I raised 4 kids here that all played out in the brook at Fletcher's Field, and now they're planning on moving to Brook, and I don't understand how that's possible. We're going to have a lot of traffic and everything going around, which we don't need. I mean, Cottage Street is bad enough with all the traffic we have, and now we've got to contend with this too.
Mostly my concern is conservation issues. We've lived there almost 40 years, and we have seen the brook area flood numerous times. We have done things to our property to ensure ourselves that we don't have water in the basement or anything anymore. But they're talking about changing the whole topography of that area. So my concern is that will reinstitute a problem that we've already had a cure for.
On March 30th, the Zoning Board of Appeals voted to approve the development with conditions that were discussed with the board and the town's attorney. The board is preparing a final draft of their decision, available after April 18th through the town clerk. After that, residents and the developer have a 20-day window to appeal the ZBA decision. We also reached out to both the developer and property owners regarding Madalene Village, but they declined to comment. Teen driver cell phone statistics say that 11 teens die every day as a result of texting while driving. 40% of teens say they have been in a car when the driver used the cell phone in a way that put people in danger. An astounding statistic also says that sending or receiving a text takes a driver's eyes from the road for an average of 4.6 seconds. At only 55 miles per hour, that's like driving the length of an entire football field blind. To help address the dangers of texting while driving, the Keefe Insurance Agency brought the newly enhanced Distractology Tour to Franklin to give Tri-County students a chance behind the wheel. How is the simulation helping teens become safer drivers? Let's find out.
To go through the simulator, they do different scenarios. I mean, this is what it looks like. They're driving, everything is controlled by the student. They have the steering wheel, they drive, they turn, they brake, they press the gas, everything. So it's very realistic actually, and throughout the scenarios there's different things they have to look out for. They have sometimes like the cell phone, we give them a cell phone, different things to do also. So that's usually how it goes. It takes about 40 minutes in total, 40 to 45 minutes.
So I know that you're going to be traveling all over Massachusetts as well as Connecticut and Rhode Island. Tell me about what the goal of the tour is.
The main goal is to bring more awareness to the dangers of distracted driving. There's different things to look out for on the road that they should be looking at, not down at their cell phone. They have the radio, they have drinking and eating, different things that are distractions as well, not just the texting. So that's the biggest goal, just to make sure that everyone, especially the young drivers, they are aware of all these different things so they don't crash.
So besides texting, because I know this is mainly about texting and driving, but what are some of the other really dangerous habits that teenagers engage in while driving?
Texting and driving is definitely a big one. One of the biggest reasons why districtology started. But there's the other distractions with the radio. They're changing the music. They're playing with their iPod. You know, they're actually eating and drinking. We also give them the water bottle, so they're actually opening the water bottle. They're changing music on the actual radio that works. Very realistic. And then they have people like in the back seat, you know, they have the navigation. So there's so many different distractions, and we try to point everything across to them while they're doing it.
Now, I know that there are some statistics that say that 11 teenagers die a day from texting and driving. So why do you think a simulation like this is the best way to educate teens?
Well, we show them those numbers throughout also, and I think pretty much showing them how fast an accident can happen. This is probably the safest way that they can go through and crash, and they see it in real life what can happen in a safe environment. So that's pretty much what we try to do for them.
What kind of results have you seen since being on this tour? Has there been any decrease in the amount of texting and driving that teenagers engage in?
We have seen actually with the research that we do with the actual simulator and surveys we go through in all the years that we've been doing it so far, 20% of the students that have gone through it have become better drivers, and they've noted that they feel like they're better drivers after this.
I was curious to know what it was like to get behind the wheel, and even though the simulation was geared for teens, I decided to try it out for myself. Initially, I was a bit shaky during the practice session. Once I was really in the simulation, I realized it was a lot harder than I imagined. Like many drivers, I was going above the speed limit and had a difficult time stopping the car. But the hardest part? Texting. I don't ever text and drive. First, I'm not good at it, and even if I was, I know how dangerous it can be. Those concerns became a reality the moment I unlocked my phone. I began to swerve into another lane, and even though I used my voice to text, I ultimately rear-ended the car in front of me. We may think we are in control, but we learn very quickly how little control we have when distracted. This simulation was a great way to show both early learners and experienced drivers that being focused on the road is not only critical for your safety, but also for the people around you. An exciting day at Franklin is coming up as volunteers will gather to celebrate Earth Day, a day to pause and think of our environment. On Saturday, April 29th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., volunteers will meet at the Beaver Pond parking lot. They'll be given targeted areas to clean up. Each year brings together kids, teens, and adults as residents give up just a few hours to keep our lovely town just that, clean, pristine, and lovely. Franklin is the first place that comes to mind whenever we think of home. As a Franklin resident, we are part of a community of neighbors that regularly work together to support one another, whether it's through our neighborhood small businesses or local nonprofit groups. One of the many great things about Franklin is the tight-knit dedication of its residents, many families having lived here for generations. The local issues affecting Franklin, from the pipeline to the Madalene Village development, have moved concerned residents to take action time and time again. Friends and families come together to speak up for what they believe in and encourage others to voice their opinions when it matters. Because that community voice is the thing that keeps us in first place for safety and quality of life here in our home, our first place, Franklin. This wraps up our 5th edition of Franklin Almanac. As we continue to bring you more stories, feel free to email us at almanac@franklin.tv and let us know what you'd like to see. It could be part of our next episode. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again soon. For Franklin Almanac, I'm Polikseni Manxhari.